Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a smart, witty, and timely podcast brought to you at a time when Americans are getting fed up with all the shouting and bickering in Washington, D.C. So I, Halli Casser-Jayne, and veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper are here to offer you an insightful, engaging journey into the world of politics, always with a smile and dialogue that snap, crackles, and pops. And with our very special guests, we strive to offer a different take on all things politics in our weekly conversations. So, pour yourselves a martini, grab a spot on your favorite sofa, and have a listen as we tackle it all and like to stir, yes, and sometimes shake things up. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, an in-depth conversation with probably the only person as controversial as Donald J. Trump these days, journalist Michael Wolff, here to talk about his new book, Siege, Trump Under Fire, a book that sizzles with the story of the second year of the Trump presidency, a presidency that is literally under fire from almost every side. But that's not all. Stay tuned for the second half of the show, when my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, and I slice and dice all things politics on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show with Matthew Cooper. We're just beginning. Here we go. Probably the only person as controversial as Donald J. Trump these days is journalist Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff made huge waves with his #1 bestselling bombshell book, Fire and Fury, in which he gave his readers a rare and raucous glimpse into the early days of the tumultuous Trump presidency. Now Wolff is back with his new book, Siege, Trump Under Fire, a book that sizzles with the story of the second year of the Trump presidency, a presidency that is literally under fire from almost every side. Presidencies evolve. Trump's second year as president and the situation in the White House is profoundly different from the first, but that might not be saying much. Trump has burned through staff like a candle wax. He's no longer surrounded by experienced advisors, and Wolff paints us a picture of an even more impulsive and volatile Donald J. Trump than ever. Is that even possible? Let's talk with the author of Siege, Trump Under Fire, Michael Wolff. Hi, Michael. It's Halli. How are you?
I'm very good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty gosh darn good, I think. It's Monday, but it's a good Monday so far, and I got you on this show. How nice is that?
Terrific. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Listen, buddy, I got to start with this. I think the only person on the planet right now as controversial as Donald Trump might be you. I love it. Don't you love it? Do you love it? Don't you love the controversy surrounding you? It sells books.
I just power nose ahead.
Is that how it works?
Ahead, keep walking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a smart guy. You are the journalist that journalists just love to hate. But I have to say, you do give us most in-depth inside glimpse into Trump of just about anybody. I got to give you that. And I bet you the others are wishing that they could do what you do. So before we kind of really begin and look into the meat and bones of your book, tell us what it is you set out to do in this book.
I think what I set out to do is actually quite different from what other journalists have set out to do here. I'm all about trying to convey the nature of this experience. What's it like in Trump world? What's it like in Crazy Town? How does it feel? How does it sound? What makes it real? So if I've done things right, people can read this book and Fire and Fury, my first book, and genuinely come away thinking they know what this is about. They understand that there is a world here which is totally different from anything that they've experienced or even imagined.
Did you know him before he was given the presidency by Mr. Putin? And how well?
I did. I did not well, but like a lot of journalists in New York, I had a passing acquaintance with him. I was at New York Magazine for many years, and He used to call me up, or I was one of the people, and maybe the main person. He used to call up to complain about either what was written about him, or more often than not, what was not written about him. Why wasn't he in the following article? Why wasn't he called to comment on the following issue? So we had and this was not a hostile relationship at all. It was actually kind of a convivial, even amusing relationship. Perfectly friendly. I mean, I didn't take him very seriously, and he just seemed to be what everyone thought of him in New York at that time. This was Donald Trump. He's Donald Trump. That's it.
So, do you think he changed? I mean, when you look at him before you even get into the research for your books and talking to the people you talk to, was your feeling that he's changed? Because there are all these stories about, maybe it's Alzheimer's, maybe. Did he look differently to you, or the same?
I would say pretty much. I think what's changed is that he's the president of the United States. So what's changed is you have taken probably the last person you would ever think would become the president of the United States and make him the president of the United States. That's what's changed.
So did you go into this wanting to look to expose the man, or to discover who he really is? Did you think maybe
completely. Not, I have no political agenda here. Again, unlike other journalists, I'm interested in the fact that this is this is a larger than life character, that he is this most extraordinary person in this most extraordinary situation. And I just knew that would be the material, that would provide the material for an incredibly compelling story.
Okay.
Whatever happens.
Right. Okay. So we'll get into the meat and bones of it, but I have to ask you one last thing on this lane. Is he likable?
Sometimes. In the beginning, he's likable because he's heaping flattery on you, and he's trying to impress you, and he wants you to like him. And even into the second time you meet him, and possibly the third, but shortly after that, he forgets about who you are. You don't exist for him as an individual anymore. And he's dismissive, abusive, no longer listens to you. It's a weird transition that takes place, as though he only has the attention span to see you for a very limited time, and then you just become like everyone else, and everyone else represents a kind of galaxy of people he's not interested in, because he's only fundamentally interested in himself.
So if water seeks its own level, it generally does, I gotta say. And reading your books, one can only conclude that this is an administration of bottom feeders. I'm sorry, these people are truly, bottom feeders. Do you see Trump as a bottom feeder? The king of the crappies? I mean, words are thrown out about this guy as malignant narcissist, but maybe it's something even more based than that.
No, I think that he's just a huckster. He's a man with no discernible talent or ability, who has yet managed to command an enormous amount of attention. So that's what he is, finally. And that's what his talent is, finally. He is an attention seeker. And in that, he is, possibly there is nobody better, because there is nobody more as shameless as this. The man has no inner life. He has spent 45 years just, and I used to see him many times at every gathering in New York that you would go to. There would be Donald Trump looking for attention, looking for women, looking just to be noticed.
An empty man.
Yeah, in fact, there's one of the things, he is so transparent that there's a Woody Allen film, Celebrity, which I think was sort of late 80s or early 90s, in which Donald Trump plays himself, which is to say, a soulless celebrity.
So true. I mean, people want to get into this whole psychological, whatever, but I just think, he's very singly dimensional, if you will. It's beyond being a malignant narcissist. It may be worse. He's just, he's just trapped in his own crap, in his own body, kind of. That's what I keep thinking. I think everybody we'll talk about that in a minute. I was going to say, and people indulge in all of this, who with Donald Trump kind of stuff. It may be far more simplistic than a lot of us, spend our wheels, turning over again and again and again. I want to go to Steve Bannon. I cannot even look at him, Michael. He creeps me out in every way besides the fact that he has this filthy, dirty demeanor. But you got a thing going. He helped you in that first book, and it seems like he's the guy who helped you in the second. Talk to me about...
Completely. I've spent a lot of time with Steve Bannon. I've spent a lot of time with almost everybody who's been close to Trump over the last number of years in the White House. And I will say the following for Steve Bannon: he is the most insightful person among the group of people who have been around Trump. He is the most, in a way, courageous person because he's been willing to be on the record. And he is, in a way, the most conflicted person, meaning that he too becomes an incredible story to tell. I mean, these two guys, Trump and Bannon, they hate each other, they love each other. They can't get enough of each other, but they're always trying to get away from each other. They don't exist without each other, but they can't stand each other. It's a dance, a political dance. I think the likes of which certainly I have never seen in quite a number of years of writing about politics.
I really get what you're saying, but I also, from my vantage point, when I live, breathe, and die this, not maybe to the specifics that you do, but certainly from afar, I just get the feeling, first of all, they need each other, and they
absolutely. They
right?
literally don't. Trump would not be the president of the United States if Steve Bannon hadn't come into the campaign in August 2016. Steve Bannon would not be a significant and well-known voice in the world had it not been for Donald Trump and Donald Trump's presidency. It's absolutely codependent.
So I know Bannon certainly was one of your top sources and continues to be. Why? What's his motivation? That he wants to talk to Trump vis-a-vis you. He wants to get a message out to the world. Let me keep going. I mean, there's revenge, manipulation. I mean, this is no small thing. The fact that Bannon continues to speak to you.
I think all of those things are true. On top of that, I think that Bannon feels he has a story to tell. He is as astounded by what has happened as anybody. So we look, people on the outside look at this and think, oh my God. Well, Bannon looks at this from the inside, and his oh my God is an oh my God times 1,000. So I think that he has a need, and this is not just Bannon. This is almost everybody in the Trump orbit. But Bannon is somehow more articulate and more passionate, and perhaps his need is greater to try to express the bizarreness of what has happened here. And I think for me. I think, I didn't know when I wrote my first book, and one of the effects of that was for Bannon to be, for Trump to dump on Bannon publicly, for Bannon to lose his sinecure with the Mercers and Breitbart. I mean, it was really disruptive to Bannon's life. But nevertheless, he continued to talk to me, at least in part for the simple reason that he liked the first book. I mean, I think that he thought that it was an accurate reflection of what he saw inside the White House. I mean, I think that this was true about about many of the people who were in the White House in those first 7 or 8 months. They came to see my book as a fair telling of their story.
You like Steve Bannon?
Yes. I mean, we have a good relationship. Clearly, I'm not sure I would characterize us as friends, but we are certainly. He's the source, and I'm the journalist, and that works, I suppose, until it doesn't work.
So that requires.
So I say something that he doesn't.
Right, but that requires trust on your part as well. That he's not using you and manipulating you or playing you or giving you stuff that he thinks.
Well,
so there is that too. So then your judgment has to come into play here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, I've spent a lot of time with Steve, so I know what he tells me. I know that it has proved almost invariably to be true and correct. But the other aspect of this is that I'm writing about Steve. I'm not just taking what he tells me. I'm telling the Donald Trump story, but I'm also telling the Steve Bannon story.
So we have to trust in your judgment here too, right? Because you're taking the facts.
Well, I think in all writers you have to trust in their judgment, or you don't have to trust in their judgment. You have to trust in what you have to, because they've written. I've written 300 pages in this book, 300 pages in the last book. So that's a fairly good document you've got the goods in front of you, and you can make a decision for yourself. Does it, have I managed to tell the story? Have I communicated the experience of what life Trump world is like?
Stay with me on Bannon for another minute or so, because there is this too. We've got an election coming up, 2020. How much does Bannon want to be a part of that? Will Trump bring Bannon back in? That has to affect anything. Go ahead.
No, I think they're both divided on this. And I've sat with Bannon for many hours as he's debated whether or not to go back into the White House or to take over the campaign, the reelection campaign. And I know from a variety of people that Trump has this same debate: should he take Bannon back? Would Bannon come back? And where this comes out, I don't know. I think it would be painful for Trump to have to admit that he really does need Steve Bannon. I think it would be painful for Steve Bannon to have to go back to work for Donald Trump. But could that happen? Yes. And I would say, I would go a little further, that that the only way Donald Trump gets reelected, in my view, is if Steve Bannon comes back and runs the campaign.
I'm not sure he can get reelected even with that, but that's a different conversation we can have another day. But I have to ask you this also, and that is, as far as, Trump. When was the last time, have you sat down in a room with him? Conversation with him?
Yeah, I haven't, I have not spoken to him since, just about the end of 2017.
Okay.
So just before, not long before Fire and Fury came out, and then Fire and Fury came out, and he tried to sue me and shut down the publication, and pulled the full Trump.
Right, got that, like crazy. So all right, so on Trump. Last night, did you see the Stephanopoulos trip, and did you watch it by chance?
Yeah, I saw part.
Did you see the part with Mulvaney coughing?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. No, it's literally crazy town. I mean, and it's a hard thing to sort of to get people to understand that you're dealing with a whole kind of set of uncommon assumptions, uncommon behavior patterns. Again, like nothing you have ever seen in anyone else.
So batshit crazy, eccentric, infantile, stupid, criminal do all the above, but Michael, he's there. Right, and he's there. And you know what? He's outsmarting everybody right down the line.
I don't know. I think you have to. I mean, there's a couple of ways to look at this. Is there a method to his madness? I do not believe there is. I believe that he is just singularly mad, that he exists in the moment. Is he outsmarting everybody? I actually would argue, and I think my book is a counter narrative to that. You know, the dominant narrative is that he's a strong man. Somehow the waters part for him. Nobody can lay a glove on him. And I think the story that I've told is a story about meltdown, that it actually gets worse and worse. He becomes more and more alone. His actions are more and more peculiar and riskier, that it becomes more and more about what he can get away with. And the problem with that is that eventually, if that's your threshold, eventually you get caught.
Well, sure. He's like every other criminal in the world. They all have that mindset until they're caught.
So I think, so I just think that what we're not seeing is somebody getting stronger and stronger. It's somebody actually getting weaker and weaker. And that eventually, pick your metaphor, the train hits the wall or the wings come off the airplane.
Okay, and it's a matter of luck as well. That kind of figures into all of this, except to say he's still in control, Michael. He's still the president of the United States. He's not being impeached. His best friend is Nancy Pelosi these days, by the way. She's his buddy, his pal. And we have one Republican congressman who's willing to go up against the guy, and the rest of them are kissing his you-know-what, and they're on their knees. What?
Yeah, I think you're right about this, but I think this flips. Everybody, you look for the moment in which it does turn. There's this thing about him, and it goes through this craziness, this asymmetric way that he can play something is confounding to people. I mean, I continue to believe what happened in the Mueller thing is that Mueller decided, that Trump was there and he was wearing a suicide vest. And if Mueller pushed him too hard, Trump would blow up everything, literally everything. And Bob Mueller decided, Trump is going to pass eventually. He will be passed out of Washington, out of history. And so best not to let him blow up everything before that happens.
Oh, don't get me on that Mueller thing, because if I go on there, you're going to be like, because Michael, honestly, this guy, who said the line in the book, never send a Marine to do a hitman's job? Was that your line?
Exactly. That's Bannon's line.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally true. Mueller said, I represent the institutions and I have to defend the institutions. That's more my job than it is prosecuting Donald Trump. So in some very clear way, he punted. In some profound way, he decided that was the better part of valor.
Well, I don't think we need valor when we're talking about criminal. It's utterly bizarre to me. And it leaves the nation and it leaves the Democratic Party, by the way, in a just untenable position. There is that too. In the interest,
I completely agree.
Yeah, I know you and I are on the page. Yeah, I read your book. I know what you think. We're on the same page on 95% of everything. I just like making the point with somebody who I respect, and I do respect your work. So it's important that we go here and my listeners get a chance to hear what your position is after having lived, breathed, and died this character for so long as you have. Can we move on to Bitch McConnell? That's what I call him. I call him Trump's Bitch McConnell.
Sure,
you like him better than I do. I think, but you don't think he is as much of a sycophant as everybody else pitches him to be.
I think he hates Donald Trump.
Right.
I know that he hates Donald Trump. I think that he, like Bob Mueller, is trying to navigate around Donald Trump, survive Donald Trump without having Donald Trump bring the House down or bring the Republican Party down. I mean, clearly he's in it for Mitch McConnell, too, because Mitch McConnell's entire focus is maintaining his control on the Senate. And I think that he believes that Trump, if incorrectly played could imperil that. I also believe that if given the opportunity to sink Donald Trump, to kill the king, and he understands that if you go against the king, you have to kill the king. Given that opportunity, he would.
For sure. He'd save himself, but so would Nancy Pelosi. They're all, I'm not sure who's worse these days. One just plays it differently than the other, and the other, and the other. You know what I'm saying? When I listen to you do interviews, I always get the feeling that you find this whole Trump phenomena somewhat amusing. Am I taking him too seriously? Is the rest of us taking him too seriously? Is the joke on us? I mean, you do get that little twinkle in your eye, Michael, sometimes. It's just hilarious to watch.
I think you're right to catch that, and I don't know the answer. I mean, I sometimes think, and especially, in the times that I've spent with Trump, or when I've sat on the telephone with him, I think that he's not serious, that this is all a kind of passing joke to him, that he's getting, that he's not really interested in being the president of the United States. Or as he once told me, when I specifically asked him, I said, what do you want to get out of this? And he said, literally without hesitation, I want to be the most famous man in the world. And then he snapped his fingers at Jared Kushner, who was there, and said, Jared, am I the most famous man in the world? So you're in this feeling. It's very easy to have the feeling that you're no longer talking about the president of the United States, that you're no longer really in the White House, that he's converted this all back into the Trump organization. And it's just Donald Trump sitting there, with a lot of people trying to, A, not provoke his wrath, B, trying to anticipate whatever thing he wants, and be, quite assured that whatever happens, nothing is really going to be affected because it's as everyone just says, it's just Donald Trump.
That's what I've always thought. And I don't even think it's power. I think you know what I'm saying? It's about him. And I think he's as amused by playing everybody as anything he does in any given day. That Twitter thing for him, that's fun.
Totally, completely. One of the things, when I've done after Fire and Fury came out, and this was, very successful in Europe or lots of parts of the world. But I went on this big book tour in Europe, and at every point, first question people always asked was about the danger we're in. Could Donald Trump take us to war? Would he do that? And and I thought about that, and I thought, I don't think so. I think it's too complicated for him. War demands a lot of attention. You got to analyze data. You got to make decisions. You got to pay attention to PowerPoint. He's out of the room. He can't do that. I mean, it's better. The North Korea thing was a perfect example. He went from we're gonna Rocket Man, and we're gonna bury you, to hugging this guy, and nothing changed. Nothing. No circumstance on the ground changed whatsoever. So it was just like, war is too complicated, so let's have peace.
Listen, in that respect, he's a very simple guy. That's the thing. I think that we all over-intellectualize him, frankly. I think it's much more simplistic than that. Hey, let's, Kim Jong-un and I, we'll be friends. We'll figure this out. We don't, these crazies in Washington get themselves all riled up over what? It's two men talking. That's how he thinks. I swear. That's clear to me. And maybe in some respects he could be right. On the other hand, then you look at Iran and you go, oh, yeah. I'm from New Jersey too, by the way. Where I grew up in Englewood, but my family's business was in Paterson, where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Right, I know.
What business were they in?
The Manhattan Transit Company. You're at bus lines. And Lincoln.
No,
my brother-in-law is from Patterson. Graduated from Patterson High School. So there you go. But okay, so back to our buddy Trump. So listen, some stuff in this book is pretty amazing. I don't want to give a lot of it away because I want everybody to read it because it's a terrific, you're a great writer too. I mean, you got away with words and you got a wonderful sense of humor, that Jersey sense of humor. I'll give you that. Nikki Haley, former ambassador to the UN, gives Trump a B job. Hannity's too much of a leech even for Trump. Yeah, there's some stuff in here, honey. What, out of all the revelations made to you that you came across, what's the one that surprised you the most?
You know, I people are always asking me that, and it's like it's everything is gobsmacking. You cannot believe. I mean, this is how extraordinary this administration is, and how extraordinary this president is. It's a level of behavior that you can't imagine. Any one instance would have imperiled any other president, but there are so many instances here, one after another, after another, after another, which are all kind of funny or sort of gallows humor. You know, when he speculates that Brett Kavanaugh was abused by his priest, because Kavanaugh is kind of simpering on a television interview, you think, oh my God, I cannot believe he actually said that.
I believe it. Yeah.
The thing, it's almost part of his charm that he says anything. If it comes into his mind, he says it.
So does it tick you off that so many people love him? Does it confuse you? Does it
Well, it confuses me. It confuses me on this basis. Everybody who comes into contact with him, and everybody who has come into contact with him in the more than 2 years he's been in Washington, can't stand him. I mean, literally, they believe there's something wrong. There's something broken in him, and he's such a mean guy that they're literally repulsed by him. So, how is it that this 40% or so of people in the country are nevertheless wedded to him? I mean, I have to be honest. I have in-laws who are very serious Trump supporters, and I say to them, hey, but wait a minute, you don't know Trump, and you know me, and I'm telling you, he's a crazy guy. And they kind of wave that away. Oh, yes, we've heard that. But
right.
We think he's the following. So I don't know.
It's bizarre.
What does it take?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's bizarre. It's just, it makes no sense. Smart people, too, by the way. Some of my friends are like your friends, and they're smart. They're not stupid people. Maybe they're dumber than I thought they were. I don't know. That's what I always come up with.
I mean, there's, remember,
I don't know the answer.
Trump is fundamentally an actor. And, that's his big success has not been in real estate. It's been as a television actor. And I think he's managed to create a very powerful illusion. Now, when you get close to that illusion, you see almost immediately what's wrong with it. But if you don't, if you're just out there, if you're watching this like a television show, you think, oh, Trump, my man.
People don't ask the right questions. I think that's a lot to it. I have two more questions. They're kind of one question before we go. Somebody's going to do him in. You know that, right? You know that. I know that. We've talked about that. And I'm just wondering who you think that's going to be, because it wasn't Cohen, and he couldn't really, because he's a felon himself, and he's not believable. But is it Don McGahn? Who's on your list? Who's going to be the one who finally does this dude in?
You mean who is the John Dean of this?
Yeah.
It's a super good question. And in some sense, it could be anybody. So everybody here has the goods on him. Hope Hicks has the goods on him. Don McGahn has the goods on him. Bannon has the goods on him. You can go down the list of almost everybody who has been around him. So how does this happen? This is a very good question.
There's no answer. There may not be an answer. That's the thing. I talked about luck before, and I say, that's what's going to probably do him. And at the end, as the luck gives out, how, who, what, whatever. But in the same vein as that question, I say to you, how do you see this all ending? And how do you think it should end? How, Michael, darling, do you want it to end?
I just want it to end. I don't.
No, you don't. You're making too much money off of it. You don't want that to end. It's too good.
Oh, I do. And the idea of having to write a third Trump book. Well, ask me how I feel in a couple of weeks.
Right. I'm sure it'll be different. Right.
Thing I want to do.
I hear you.
But I don't know. One of the things that I really believe is that Trump cannot lose an election. That he just doesn't have the psychological wherewithal to endure that. It would break him. Therefore, if that's the case, he won't let himself be in a position to lose the election. So what happens if a year from now his numbers look terrible, which I believe that they will look terrible? What does he do? Does he declare victory and go home? I don't need to run. I've accomplished all that I have to accomplish. I don't know. I mean, obviously the danger of that is as soon as he leaves office, somebody's going to indict him. This is a kind of a complicated. There's a complicated puzzle here that has to be put together to how to get rid of this.
Never more fascinating. What?
I do not believe he will be reelected. So therefore, how this plays out between now and then, I don't know. It's going to be something to see.
Well, listen, you better give us a third book. I demand it, and I want you to come back when you do. I just love this stuff. I think you're great. I really, really do. And I think you do something that needed to be done. We don't always have to get down to, direct quotes and attribution and all of that. Sometimes the feeling is the thing we need to learn about. You give us a lot of insight into that and what's going on in our politics. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I've been speaking with Michael Wolff. His book is Siege, Trump Under Fire, available at fine bookstores everywhere. And follow Michael on Twitter at Michael Wolff, NYC. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and at our newest home, Radio Public, and on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Just say, The Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. It's Matt and Halli time. Here we go.
All right. You're amazing.
Oh, no, honey, you're amazing. What a way to start a show. Girl. You're the most amazing. Should we get into that? The bestest, the mostest. I love it. So, a new week. Hey, you know where I want to start?
Where?
I'm hearing rumblings, my friend, that impeachment is very much back on the table. Have you heard anything?
Well, I kind of thought steam would gather for it, so I can't say I'm shocked. But what did you hear in specific?
Well, I can't tell you who, because they said I couldn't tell who. But I can tell you that they start looking at some inside polls, and more than 2/3 of Democratic voters are ready for impeachment, and that kind of shook everybody up on the inside. That was number one. And then Katie Porter came out yesterday and said, impeach the mother.
Right.
Which was big, and explain to people why that's big, right, that she did.
Well, Katie Porter is one of the Democrats in the House, one of the newly elected ones who flipped a district, and she's from Orange County. She's she's a law professor, and so she's got a lot of cred, and she'd been on the fence about this, and so when she came out with a rather forceful, logical argument for starting an impeachment inquiry, it got some attention.
It surely did, and she's the first one to crack that new wave of that blue in red electees that you and I have talked so much about on the show.
Right.
So I'm saying to myself, is this truly the dam has broken? And what? But on top of that, let me tell you something else, which is Hope Hicks is testifying as we speak this morning. But last night, Trump got crazy with her again and said, "Oh no, she's under executive privilege." After they thought they had a fair deal, and it was maybe one time they pulled this off too many, and Nadler's starting to feel like, and the whole crew over there is starting to feel like we are just getting our asses whooped, in the court of dignity, if you will.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Well, I think it was always wrong to think of impeachment as a static thing, as a question of whether they would impeach on things we know from the Mueller report. There are always new things they're doing in the White House, like, stonewalling all the subpoenas or, new scandals. There's always new things to tip the balance in favor of impeachment. And
can I clarify that? Because I'm not sure it's about impeachment. It's about beginning an impeachment inquiry, which I have. Yeah. And I want to make that clear that there are two different things. And you know how I've always been pro that inquiry.
Right. And that's what Porter endorsed.
Exactly. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks. I think they only have until August at the latest to just, to make a move on this. After that, it's too late to do it. But I think it's going to be the Democratic Party's dignity that winds up being the thing that actually moves them across the bow, if you will, to take the jump. Because the rest of it, polls, I'm not even sure. But I do think if they start to feel consistently like they're just getting beaten to crap by, Barr and the Trump team, at some point they got to man up or woman up, as the case may be. Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of tipping that direction because of the continued actions of the administration. Exactly. I think if the administration wasn't doing a totally hard stonewall, that might be different. But now that they're doing that, and who knows what else they're up to. Yeah, I think it's pushing it that direction.
Yeah. Let's go to Florida, where I am, where it's raining every day again. Thank the Lord.
Yes, I assume you were online in Orlando to see the president.
Well, at the Amway Center. Did I tell you I got 9 calls to robocalls? I might have mentioned that last week. No, I did not attend. I might have attended, and it's just too much of a clown show, too crazy. I'm not going there. But it was interesting because the rains were coming in as they usually do around here around 4:00 in the summertime, and it was funny I had my app up because it was turning black here. It was getting really weird, and I was watching it cross over from Orlando to Vero, which was so interesting to see, and it was kind of symbolic in a way for what went down there. I love the fact that the whole day started with the Orlando Sentinel starting with a great headline, "Not Trump."
You're right.
Whoa.
They did a sort of pre-unendorsement.
Yeah,
saying they will not support Trump. They didn't endorse anyone. But
interesting. They worked so hard to decide where they were going to do this announcement for his next, term, if you will. And he, Orlando. And, I live in this corridor. And as I told you, there's a lot of hidden vote here that the Democrats have never properly mined. But the Orlando Sentinel, that must have been an ouch moment for Trump yesterday morning when they woke up and they saw that. I don't think they were planning on that. However, Mark Caputo?
No.
Okay, now I think he's writing for Politico, but he's the big Florida writer. You want to know anything about what's going on in the state of Florida? Okay. Yeah. You go to Mark.
And what did he say?
Yeah, he's brilliant. Well, he called his line. I'm giving him a hat tip on this one because I was going to steal it. I said, no, I'll give it to Mark. I want Mark on the show. He called Trump. He said he called it as Trump is running for the president of Florida.
Right.
And he is.
And what did you think of the event?
Please. Honestly, I mean, I personally think, it was, yesterday's news. It was,
right.
Hillary remains the star of the old show.
Right.
He's got to come up with some new material.
Apparently not for his crowd, though. I mean, that's
but
still
he can't
like
win on that crowd.
that's like playing Freebird. I mean, it's
but he can't play on that crowd, Matt.
no. He needs a bigger crowd,
right? I mean, so.
Yeah. And what did you think of Marco Rubio sitting there?
I gave a little shout out to him this morning on Twitter.
What'd you say for those of us who might not have seen it?
Reminded him of a quote that he made a couple of years ago that wasn't pro-Trump.
Right. Don't trust him with the nuclear codes. That
right.
Kind of
and, Marco, gross, coconuts.
Yeah, because he didn't have to be there.
Well, listen to me. Let me explain to you what's going on here. They sewed it up. They've got the local, they've got the House, the Florida House. They've got, for the first time since pre-Civil War, I think, they have, both all the representatives are Republicans, in the Senate. Poor little Debbie Wasserman Schultz is out there going,
right.
But
Rick Scott, did Rick Scott go yesterday?
Yeah, I think he was. They were all there.
He was there.
Okay. They were all there. And they are a very scary bunch that Americans should be paying attention to. You must understand just how devious and sick in a way, and how destructive this alliance is. I mean, Rick Scott destroyed this state. And if they can ever fix, we're getting red algae and all that crap already. The entire mess in this country with healthcare is his responsibility. The big king of HMOs, if you will.
Right.
He likes power, and he buys power, and he's got enough money to do it, and he's buying everything. That's the Dems' biggest problem in Florida. And I know they're working on a ground game, and I know that what's his name, who lost the president. Oh, and DeSantis. DeSantis is doing, crazy stuff that's going to hurt the Dems here too, in terms of legislation. He owns the governorship. They own it all. And, for those of us who believe that the gateway to the presidency is Florida, this is no small thing. And I don't think the press is paying enough attention or writing the kind of stuff that.
Yeah, I think tough to get back to the Dems.
Andrew Gillum was on CNN this morning, and first of all, he was saying so much for polls because he knew what his inside polls were, and he knew how he lost, yada yada yada. But he, of course, is running this new move into the ground game that I say is so important in the state, and he was touting that. He said, and I think he's a smart guy. 1%. That's the fluctuation. Whoever wins is going to win by that 1%.
Right.
And they're not playing fair on the Republican side in this state. So, hello.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very tough for them.
Right. The other problem is the Hispanic outreach. And you mentioned that last week, I think, when you said, the polls aren't great, showing that under the circumstances.
Trump's,
Go ahead.
Yeah, his Hispanic numbers are higher than one might think in a lot of places.
Right.
And, I think there was a hope that the surge of Republican voters in the Puerto Rican voters in the state would, help tip the balance. But
it will if they can get out the vote, which they did not do last time.
Yeah.
So that again is it. And maybe they're smart enough now to know how to go in and mine those people and get those people in. But I think there are weird laws being passed in a lot of states by the Republicans. I don't know if it's hit Florida yet, where you're not allowed to transport people to the voting booth.
Right.
Which is bizarre, but okay, whatever. Last night I wanted one other thing about the rally. Two things really. First of all, CNN did not run the whole thing. They shut it off in 2 minutes because it was old news. They said, of course, it was also after they heard shouting, CNN sucks. So that may have done, but I like the fact that they shut it down. It's not news. The other one was Biden. Biden had made a thing that he was going to cure cancer, and everybody was laughing at him about it, without the understanding, of course, that this is so personal to him because of his son dying, of a brain tumor. But last night, Trump Jr., who is just a disgrace, got up there and started mocking Biden about it. I have no patience for this person. for this it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this once before. I mean, Trump has his occasional moments of a little bit of charm. I wouldn't say charm, but at least he has his moments of charisma, I would say. Whereas
the kid
Junior is just sort of like the dour imitation of the old man.
And the guy, really, it's pretty awful. All the children were there, and they were all doing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give 30 seconds to this. Ta-ta, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. That was 15 on my part. You get 15.
Well, I mean, she goes back to the governor's mansion where you get free housing in Arkansas, and you can continue your grifting. It's her dad was governor. It does sound like she wants it. And can she knock off the very able Bush-sponsored congressman, Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin? That's going to be interesting if that happens.
I think her reputation is messed up permanently. And now I understand who Arkansas is or what Arkansas is and that kind of thing. But, she's a laughingstock. As well she should be.
Don't disagree, but
right.
We'll see. Still win.
Yeah, you never know. It's Arkansas. But, Arkansas was Bill Clinton, too.
It's a family name in politics. Right. And
right.
They've never had a woman governor, and they don't think she's a joke.
Well, some don't.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
It's a we'll see. Should we talk about Iran? Because this is getting kind of a little bonkers.
Yeah, well, I mean, the administration has laid blame for these tanker accidents, explosions, what have you, on Iran. They've put out some video, and they say it's an open and shut case, and they're warning Iran. They're putting some more troops in the region. The Japanese and the Europeans and some other allies are not as on board. Of course, the Saudis and the Gulf states, can't wait to get going here. It's a cliche, but it's a volatile situation.
Do you really think it is?
Or do you think it's all kabuki theater and nothing's going to happen?
I was not for the Iran deal, but stupid is when you have a deal made by somebody else and you renege on the deal. That's just stupid. Because that just puts the entire United States looking like you're untrustworthy. So we can start there. That disrupts everything. And so from there on in, it's just, and you got to understand who you're cutting, who you're screwing in the deal. Because if there's one thing that the Ayatollah and all the people in Iran have, and that's, they all are, have egos the size of the oil fields. So, that was stupid. And as far as what's going on now, this tit for tat and this, taking it to brinkmanship, if that's what you need, if you're talking about. And today there was more stuff today. There was I saw it. I should have written it down. I just woken up and I grabbed from my Twitter feed, as I do. But something about, bombs. Something was bombed. Something was hit with something. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
All right. Well, maybe I won't talk about it because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's in the back of my head. But I guess what I'm saying about it all is, Michael Wolff is on the beginning of the show today. You got to listen to we had a blast, but he's a fun guy. But he did say something that was, about Trump and Iran. And that is, Trump can do a lot of things, but what it takes to run a war, his brain just won't slow down enough to do it. So.
That's true. You have to go to a lot of meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you got to really actually, be a president. And so that's just not in, Trump's.
You got to make a lot of decisions. It's true.
Yeah, that's too hard. Yeah, that's work. I mean, that's real work. There won't be time for Twitter if there's a war. So, if he can avoid it, I think he'll avoid it. Okay, to the subject that I've been dying to get to. Ready?
Yes.
Trump Nacht. You heard me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So now Trump announces that they're rounding up the illegal immigrants.
Right.
And the way that he announces it I started to shake. I will tell you honestly, I started to shake. And I immediately thought to myself, crystal knocked. And this is not how we do things in America. So I didn't waste 2 seconds and I do Trump knocked. Well, OIC comes out and she goes the Nazi route and she says, these are concentration camps. What we've got, this is what this administration is all about. And Ms. Liz Cheney went back bonkers, ever the defender of Israel and Judaism and everything. It says that's just not a fair fight. And it became a big deal, in social media.
Right.
And it always becomes a big deal when you bring up, 1940s and Nazism and Hitler and you make the comparison to Trump. And I think that sometimes it is okay. And I went with, and I never really agree, as you know, with OAC or any of these, young'uns. This time I think she was right. And I made the comparisons that concentration camps were where they concentrated when they collected the Jews. That's not death camps. And yet what we have on the border are death camps because children are dying in these cages that they've built when they've been taken away from their parents. So Trump knocked, not to be funny. This is really something I think America really has to, when is a bridge gone too far, been built too far? Talk to me. I know you're going to disagree with me. What?
No, I mean,
yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, look, it just is a matter of nomenclature, and the term concentration camp was used before they were death camps in Germany when they rounded people up and just beat them instead of killing them. So the word concentration camp is not synonymous with death camp, as you say. So technically AOC was right, but then, thematically, yeah, it is, it has echoes of the Holocaust. I mean, no one thinks they're going to run death camps, but in the sense of mass slaughter. But you're right. I mean, people are dying at this thing, and
the rounding up is what did me in.
Well, yeah, the rounding up always seemed far-fetched because of
the logistics.
Not because Trump lacks the venality, but just because the logistics of massively rounding up lots of people seemed like something that wouldn't happen, both because it's hard to do and businesses don't want it, and it's just, there's no demand. I mean, there is demand for it, but there's not enough demand for it to happen. And we'll see if it does happen. But either way, the existence of these facilities is not something
acceptable.
That people are going to look back on and be proud of.
No, it's unacceptable to most people. Just not to 38 to 40%. That's the way it goes. All right, let's go to money. Money is always a good way to start the day. Trump raised $24.8 million yesterday.
Right. He's so rich, he needs to raise money.
$24.8 million. And everybody's clapping because Biden hinted that he might have raised $20 million in the quarter.
Yeah.
Come on.
President is going to have plenty of money.
He already has it.
Yeah, and he's going to get even more, and they're going to have all the money they need. And, it's going to be a bruising fight to the nomination. It's going to take some juice out of the Dems.
I don't understand. Why the Dems always have trouble with the money issue?
Well, I mean, usually in the end they have it,
Yeah, but they don't never have it when they need it.
Right. That's the problem is they don't have it now.
And the reason?
Well, for now, they just have a massive internecine brawl going on.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, and will most of those people who raise money, will they be giving it back to the DNC?
Also, the Dems, shackle themselves. I'm not going to take this kind of money. I'm not going to take that kind of money. You think Trump has ever said, I won't take money from him?
Right. There you go. That's what I was getting to. That's the issue. That's the issue with everything that the stupid Dems are doing with their hands tied behind their back on every single thing that goes on. They just don't have the fight. They don't have they're not street fighters. They don't know. I mean, somebody help me, please. There was what's his name? My brain just stopped. He was one of the people who worked on Hillary. Dow.
Mm-hmm.
Did a poll this morning. Right? Now who's for impeachment, who's not?
Right.
No. Let me be more specific. That wasn't what it asked. It said, how do you feel the Dem leadership in lieu of where we are and the kind of person who's running the Republican side of things, fares in comparison? 79% said, get rid of Pelosi and Schumer. So the people understand what's going wrong. And he followed it up with, you can't play the way you're playing leadership when you're up against the Fuhrer.
Right. But in terms of money, what we were talking about, I mean, it's the fighters like Warren and Bernie who do the most shackling of raising money.
Right. It's always the left wing.
Yeah.
Not good, the left wing. Okay, moving very quickly to the economy, which looks to be headed for something not so terrific. Let me ask you this on that question, though. If, in fact, it doesn't tank as people think it's going to tank, and it's an awful wish, by the way, but if it doesn't tank, can he run on the economy? Or will that work for him? Because I think people aren't feeling, the average American doesn't feel a thing that this tax cut did for the 1%. So I'm just wondering about the economy and how much part you think right now they should be talking about or playing it.
Yeah, I think any president who had 3.8% unemployment would be running on. I realize the gains aren't evenly distributed, but that's still an incredible number. And, this with the stock market up 50% or more since his election, there are a lot of more people who, especially people who vote, who feel a little more buoyed by that.
Well, yeah, very few people in America, by the way, have money in the stock market, which is something people forget.
That's not quite true. A lot of people have some kind of retirement type thing.
Mm.
They may not be like, traders and stuff or have it at, in a ready, at hand, but they do have some kind of retirement. And, those are people who vote more than people who have nothing. So, yeah, he's going to run on it, as any president in this situation would. And, Dems will have to make a case for why it's not as good as he's arguing.
But see, there was something that was interesting about it last night, because all those people who were sitting in that audience, you say the word money, economy, it kind of goes over their heads. They go blind. They're in it for we're the victims. Hillary Clinton, we're not safe. Those, it's interesting to see that those are not people. Those people just kind of, fade out on those kind of topics.
That's probably true. I mean, resentment about immigrants and like Hillary's emails are
right.
the real sexy issues.
It's just utterly odd. All right, so.
But it's like saying play the hits,
Well, I know that's all that it is. Who said that it was like watching what's his name? Also from Florida. Everybody's from Florida these days. Who said it was like watching the last performances by Elvis Presley? Is that like Jailhouse Rock? God. I'm waiting. All right. Two real quick things that I wanted to talk about. One was the demise of the acting U.S. Secretary of Defense, Patrick Shanahan. Another one outed for bad behavior. Good Lord. How do they not believe in looking into people's past? That one, by the way, that story was right out in the open.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real tangled and sorry family story.
Oh, it's sad.
The
it's
kid
very sad.
beating the mother with a baseball bat, and domestic violence, and the mother. Sounds like the mother had a screw loose, and sounds like Shanahan was like trying to protect his kid from the police, and the one that used the baseball bat, and but it's the kind of thing that in normal vetting would have.
You didn't have to do normal vetting. Those stories, by the way, I knew about. They were in the news. Yeah.
It's pretty unbelievable that, he was put up to be the full-time Secretary of Defense. Anyway, as many have noted, it's one of many positions that are sitting empty.
When you're talking about Iran.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have, we have an acting White House Chief of Staff, an acting Secretary of Defense, an acting EPA, acting here, acting there.
An acting Chief of Staff who coughs a lot. Cough 3 times if you want Trump impeached.
Yes.
Sorry.
I actually kind of like that part about Trump.
Oh, God, you would.
Well, I mean, TV, you're going to have to do another take. This is a guy who works on set.
I couldn't believe he said, which angle we're going from. And he must have had a crap that Stephanopoulos left that in the cut. He must have gotten a call, I'm sure. What did he call, George? He called him a little
wise guy?
Little to his face.
Little wise guy.
And Stephanopoulos just went, I've heard this before. In his head, you could see him just go, I'm not going there with you, buddy.
Yeah.
He is absolutely the most disrespectful human being walking the face of the earth. All right. So the debates are what? Next Wednesday and Thursday.
Yes.
And, who knows what's going there. So, possibly, Matt doesn't know, I'm going to throw this out at him. We might do a pickup, on Thursday, to discuss it. But Matt didn't know that yet. He just heard that from me. So.
No, I think that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think we should do it. Maybe even we'll talk about maybe doing something live. I don't know where you're going to be that night. But anything that you wanted to say about that before we say good night or good morning or good afternoon?
Well, they're all going to have to get their words in quickly.
Yeah,
90 minutes, 10 people. They better get cracking.
Yeah. Yeah. And who is it that Biden is the one who's most at risk here?
I assume it's like the first day in the prison yard, right? I mean, you take a whack at the big guy. So you don't get beaten for the rest of your tenure. You have to just go for it. So I assume the main strategy is just to punch Biden, but maybe some people will try to punch the person who's most like them and get them out. I don't know. We'll see. Some of the outliers, somebody's going to pop who we're not expecting.
Right, I'm sure it always happens. And if it doesn't, then the press will manufacture that.
Yeah, somebody's going to pop, and people are going to be like, "Oh, who's this?"
Yeah, I agree. I'd be very curious, though. I hope they've been instructed. Hear me, to be careful, because if they take the front runner out, that may be one thing. How they take people out are things that could come back to haunt the party when they finally have a nominee. And I hope they're mindful of that they don't destroy and make Trump's job easier. There's a tactical way to handle all of this in this.
Yeah, fight. I don't think anybody's going to say, you're too old or you're...
Oh, I do. See, I do. There
might be a little living in the past, but I don't... Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Right. Well, we'll talk about it. How's that?
Yeah, could be. Bi-weekly could be.
Thank the Lord. I couldn't get through the next 6 days without it. Thank you, Matthew. I got to go.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show is a production of Resec, LLC. Be sure to tune in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show at hallicasserjayne.com or listen on your favorite app. New podcasts are posted Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern.